It's not, anybody can cook food at home, but a restaurant provides public life. You know, is this where people go? People don't go to parks to talk about politics. They go to pubs.
Better get ready, because here comes another great episode of the No Dishes Podcast. Season 6 is brought to you by Visit Bloomington. Check them out at visitbloomington.com. Play that theme song.
Hey, say, honey, let's go out to eat. Relieve our culinary duties. With all these restaurants to sweep us off our feet, they're bound to turn us into foodies. No dishes, no dishes, no dishes. We'll have a bottle of wine for lights and have a good time. No dishes, no dishes.
All right, we're here with former city councilman of 20 years, just finished a run for county commissioner and host of the 812 podcast, Steve Volan. Thanks for being here, man.
Thank you for having me, Jordan Davis. It is a pleasure to be in this very fancy studio. I am already very impressed.
Yeah, well, it is funny when people that do podcasts come in and it's like, ooh, this little thing, and like,
this could be my future.
Well, even when I came on the 812 show for yours, I still like just seeing how people do it, because we all do it differently. So it's not necessarily one's better than the other, but just like, ooh, like I didn't think about doing it that way or this, but we're already chatting about it. Let's just dive into the 812 show.
Sure.
What spurred you on to be like, I'm starting a podcast?
Well, this is related to my career as a city councilman.
Okay.
So I took office January 1st, 2004. I left office January 1st, 2024. And most of my 20 years in council, I spent just having to explain how city council worked to people. I mean, if I answered the number one comment I got as a city council member was, and this tells you sort of the period that I worked in. Oh, I was flipping channels on cable and I came across the Cats channel and I saw you on and you were talking about something and I just couldn't stop watching and I thought it was really interesting, but I must be the only person who tells you this. I heard that literally several hundred times in my career.
Wow. Okay.
Everybody thought they were the only one. Local government is inherently interesting, but I did spend a lot of time sort of explaining, no, that's not how we do it. We do it this way, and here's what the rules say, and here is the practical way to do this or that. And I realized that it wasn't going to stop. Like, even though I'm not on council anymore, people still call me up and say, what do I do, like, at this agenda, or so they're going to talk about this. Should I send a letter, or they were asking me questions about how the local government worked.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, I was thinking about what my next step was, and being able to just talk with people to explain what they do was such a thing I wanted to have done as a council member, that something I could do after I left. In fact, I wouldn't have had time to do this while I was a council member. The show launched January 16th of this year, and I wanted to launch it January 2nd. I wanted to go right into it. I just couldn't get it started.
Why not January 1st?
I did think about it. I was gonna interview somebody. I was going to interview somebody on January 1st, and I had to postpone it because I just had, I was a little too ambitious.
Yeah.
But no, I wanted to start the first business day of the year being. Actually, that would have been a holiday too, January 2nd. I think. Well, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Either way, it was January 16th.
It was a Tuesday, but no. January 16th, the day after Martin Luther King Day, I went on the air with a daily podcast.
It's great. Yeah, that's the crazy part when you walk. Garrett's like, so clear something up. He's like, you do a podcast every day.
Every weekday. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, every weekday, Monday through Friday.
Every weekday, I interview somebody who has something to do with how the city runs.
Yeah.
So I've interviewed elected officials, I've interviewed appointed officials, I've interviewed members of boards and commissions, and I've interviewed people who work for non-for-profits that touch on city policy or that interact somehow with the city. So anybody that sort of has been in, like, I'm trying to make government more apparent. I'm not worried about transparency for the most part. I think that, most levels of government do a really good job of being transparent, but there's so much data, there's so much content to process that's not put in context that you need somebody to sort of explain it.
Yeah.
And so that's what I've started doing. I just do a half-hour interview every day with somebody like who I mentioned and ask them to explain what you do, make it make sense to us.
I think it's great and necessary because there's so many people. I mean, Garrett's has some of your recent episodes on the screen. You scrolled past them now, but there's so many people in town that do really cool, important stuff that no one has people don't have any idea about.
Right.
Jennifer Pearl with the Bloomington Economic Development Commission. She is one of the sharpest people I've ever met and is just so intelligent. Mike McAfee with Visit Bloomington, obviously our presenting sponsor. I saw Isak on there.
Isak Asare.
Yep.
New council member. Yeah.
New council member. I only have ever had one interaction with him.
I just want to say the only council member who has yet to show up on my show is Dave Rollo, who I worked with for literally 20 years. He was the only constant, and he's promised to come, and he's not shown up, and I am on a campaign of public shame to get him to show up. I started the Dave Rollo Watch on my show.
I saw that. I didn't know exactly what that was about.
Yeah, it's because Dave has yet to actually, he's got no good excuse. I consider him a friend, but I'm just very disappointed. The mayor has agreed to appear on the show.
Yeah.
The only reason I haven't had the mayor on is because there's going to be so much content, I've got to figure out how to deal with it.
Right.
So it won't fit into a half-hour show. City Clerk Nicole Bolden has been on the show. Every elected official in the city has been on the show. Even Courtney Daly before she was elected in the caucus. But Dave Rollo, who should know better. Dave Rollo, you should know better. Come on the 812 already. Because it's just, I can't. You're my council member. I live in your district now.
Oh, wow. So he's your representative. Yeah.
Yes. So,
well, that was the most efficient use of that camera I've ever seen. Because we always say the only time you need to look at that camera is if you're telling something. But we have a surprise for you. Dave is here. Dave, come on out. Oh, he must have left already. Oh, man. We had the big surprise all lined up.
Ran out the back door.
Yeah.
that would have been the best joke ever. If you could have pulled that off, I would have
that's why we have
laughed
the
my
second
ass
chair
off.
sitting over there. Man, in hindsight, see if I did more pre-production, Garrett, we could have had that teed up.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
It's like,
That would
Dave,
be
how
funny.
much, I call him, like, how much ice cream do I need to give you to show up to make this happen?
So anyway, but that's the show is, I also do a segment on the show called The Lineup where I just explain what meetings are happening in City Hall today. I don't really expect people to set their schedule based on it. It's more to illustrate the boards and commissions that are meeting and what they're talking about to give people a sense of what's happening in City Hall.
Yeah, well, and just even I saw you had Michael Large on with Public Works.
Yeah, he's great.
It was just like all the things that you, in your day-to-day, you don't think about what it takes to make a city run.
Yeah.
And a lot of these people are, they're public servants. You were a public servant. Like
Right.
city council, no one gets into city council for the money.
No.
I've seen what it is. It's not anything crazy. So it's like, it really, and I mean, those meetings go on for a while.
That's a sore point with me because not only have I been preaching for a long time that we need to change the way that we do business in council. I shouldn't say we. I'm not. I'm happily
20
retired
years.
now.
You're okay to say we. Yeah.
But I used to get. Can I cuss on this show?
Yeah, sure.
I used to get shit for it from colleagues who said, if you think the meetings are too long, you should speak less, because I had a reputation for speaking a lot. And I've always been incensed by that. And I'm happy that all those people are no longer on council and that the current council gets the idea, because they made it really personal. It's like, it shouldn't be about me. I am working within the rules. You guys are the ones who will continue to use rules where you kind of want to rule by personal feeling tonight. Like, well, I feel like you've talked long enough. That's arbitrary. You can, and I used to have people chairing the meeting arbitrarily cut me off because they didn't like what I was saying. You need to change the process. So the worst meeting I ever attended was during the pandemic. It was March 3rd, 2021.
Wow.
It was, I remember it because it was you would probably remember the situation. It was over Ordinance 2106, also an ordinance that I remember. And there aren't many ordinances whose number I remember. It was about homelessness in Seminary Square. And the problem that night wasn't the topic. It was the way that the council handled the topic. So one member of council was absent because of a death in the family. There were 8 of us left, and there were 4 people adamantly against this ordinance that 3 others had introduced, and then I was on the side of the 3. Okay. And the issue, we won't even talk about which side people were on. Okay. The issue was more that the 4 people were uncollegial. The meeting was set up we had other business that lasted for 3 full hours. And then we took up Ordinance 2106. And the council in their infinite wisdom decided to allow unlimited public comment, which was typical at council. And Bloomington is a very opinionated place. People show up and they speak. Everybody wants to speak. Well, we went for 6 more hours on that ordinance alone to let everybody speak. Wow. And at the beginning, I knew that this was going to be a long meeting. And so I tried to move to say, can we limit public comment to 3 hours? And they said, no, we have to allow everybody to speak because they came out to speak. Well, no one is served by going till 3:30 in the morning. Okay, 3:30 in the morning. It was a very emotional issue. There was absolute division on both sides. So I moved that. There were only 8 people, so it required 5. Still required 5 to carry any motion. The 4 who were opposed to the ordinance refused to limit public comment. They didn't think, or they refused to not even vote. They hated it so much they wanted to kill it that night. They didn't want to postpone it to another meeting. We tried to postpone it to another meeting so that half of it could be heard in a later night so that it wouldn't have to be all night long.
Right.
And they also refused to just not introduce it. At the beginning of every ordinance, we take a vote as to whether or not to introduce it or not. And it's a perfunctory vote that we never think about. And on that night, they could have said, we hate this so much, we won't even allow it to be introduced. No, they wanted it to be heard, and they wanted to have all the public comment, and they wanted to kill it. And something had to give. Something should have, I was just, after the meeting, I became increasingly furious about it. They should have at least treated their colleagues with the respect that they deserve. At least one member attacked the personal motives of the sponsors of the ordinance, which is also verboten. On the strength of that terrible night, I wrote, and first of all, I wrote a 10-minute excoriation of my colleagues, and I read it at the next regular session, which infuriated them. But it wasn't about the fact that they disagreed with the ordinance. It was that they treated everyone poorly. They didn't have to handle it that way.
Right.
And then I wrote what I called the reasonable hour ordinance, which says that, and it says if any 2 members of council make a motion to end the meeting after 11:59 p.m., the meeting automatically ends. And it was invoked for the first time the other night when the neo-Nazis came and spoke about, at the beginning of the meeting where Gaza was on the agenda. Mm-hmm. There were 2 members who were ready to invoke that because they did not want to go past midnight, which is the way it should be.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's already starting to work. But that ordinance came out of the fact that my colleagues refused to change the schedule for anybody else's convenience except their own. So thank you for letting me vent about this thing.
Get it off your chest, Steve.
This is
a safe place.
This is a show about restaurants, and I'm here sitting here venting about
fine.
city council.
You're good. Well, it answered my question.
They could have catered the event and let us have food, even taken a break in the 9 hours to have food.
So you're there till 3:30 in the morning. What are you craving? You're like, what? You're like, man, I wish I could have some Pizza X right now. Food
trucks outside.
Well, that's great segue.
But there was no meeting because it was all virtual. It was we were still in the middle of the pandemic because that was a virtual.
Oh, so man, that's got to be even harder to stay awake if you're at home on just staring at a computer screen.
Yeah. And believe it or not, maybe 250 people attended that meeting virtually. It was one of the most. The chambers themselves can hold 150. We've had them full before and spilling out into the lobby, but meetings on Zoom, we had 250, 300 people come to a meeting once or twice.
Wow. Yeah. It's much easier. You don't have to park. You could just log in and you're there. You're in the meeting. You're part of it. There's no walls holding you in.
But also those 2 years of the pandemic were probably the worst for inter-council relations. The last term of council was really toxic. And part of it was because we couldn't see each other afterwards, go have a beer and smooth ruffled feathers. And, I was president for most of 2020. I was president for 2020. Most of it was the pandemic. It was pretty bad. And 2021 was no better. So 2022 came, and by March we were able to meet in person again, and it made so much difference. There's a reason that restaurants work. It's because it's not just feeding you; it's feeding you in a place where you can be social, and that is true. That's as much as I hate the fact that some businesses are calling employees back to work in person instead of remote. There's one reason why I understand the impulse there. It is better and more social when people are present. So I would not go back to only remote meetings willingly ever.
Yeah, I mean, there's something that when someone's right in front of you, you're reminded a little bit more about their humanity.
That's right.
If they disagree with you, it's much easier when you're behind a screen or a camera to maybe go off the hinges a little bit more than you would face to face. How commonplace was that you guys would, like, maybe people that you disagreed with, you would go out after a meeting and grab a drink and talk over issues?
I mean, number one case here is your friend and mine, Dave Rollo.
Yeah.
Dave and I, in the last 4 years of my counsel, like, Dave became increasingly opposed to the things that I supported. But because we'd worked together for so long, and we'd often go out and have a beer after a meeting and talk about things. I mean, that was a good example of separating the personal. I just have to emphasize how important it is to not take your politics personally. Some other colleagues of mine would be offended because I criticized a political opinion of theirs that they expressed in council. And the problem with that is it's not fair. Like, if I'm personally offending you because I disagree with you politically, that closes off the ability to critique your politics.
Yeah.
And Dave and I were like Wile E. Coyote and Ralph the Sheepdog. We'd come in and punch in and say hi to each other, and then go in and fight during council, and then go back out, and we'd punch out, and we'd be friends.
We're fine, yeah.
Yeah. That's the way it should be.
Absolutely. I agree. That's great. This summer, Constellation Stage and Screen presents The Break, a new rock musical, on stage June 6th through 23rd at the Waldron Arts Center. Don't miss this spicy rom-com with a healthy dose of heart. Sam and Charlie have been together since freshman year of college. They love each other, but do they? As the marriage question looms, it's time to find out what's holding them back. The two agree to take a 30-day break to date other people, and at the end of the month, they'll finally tie the knot. Or will they? See The Break on stage June 6th through 23rd in downtown Bloomington. Find tickets at cconstellation.org. Well, one of the things that I thought would be fascinating, I still want to talk more about the show.
Sure.
But the podcast and all the things that this was all spurned. We were over at a mutual friend's place and just talking about all the things that you had come across your table in 20 years on city council that affected restaurants.
Yeah.
We were chatting about parking ordinances and my hate for the no turn on reds and all these different things. And it's fascinating. You had all this knowledge about different liquor licenses. What was the one you were telling me about where if there's a theater and there's this you qualify?
Okay. We're going to dive right into that kind of inside baseball. Sure.
Yeah, no, I want the deep dive because that's why you're here, Steve.
Right.
Other than your
I thought we'd work our way up to it, but I'll go there. Sure. Okay. So let me explain some context. So yes, in 20 years, I've seen a lot of things that affect restaurants. The most memorable one would have been December 2014, which was the debate over the food truck ordinance. That's probably the single clearest memory I have, because that was an interesting meeting.
And that was my first introduction to you, not personally, but I attended those meetings, and I remember, not to brown nose, but I remember being like, he actually knows what he's talking about. He's asking intelligent questions. A lot of the people up there, I'm like, what are they asking? Like, what are we even doing? We will be here until 3 a.m. if we don't even know these basic questions, because it was very frustrating to sit through some of those.
Well, let me start with to defend my colleagues for a minute. And believe me, I have plenty of criticisms of them, but I got a general studies degree at IU, which I always thought sounded like a GED. It was an actual legit bachelor's degree. It's now called the Bachelor of Liberal Studies, which I think sounds a little bit better. But I always thought general studies is kind of lame. And then I went to a conference on new urbanism, and one of the patron saints of new urbanism gave a talk where he said, to be a suburbanist, You have to be a specialist. Here's where the shopping goes. Here's where the housing goes. Here's where the work goes. Here's where the traffic goes, and they shouldn't touch. They all have to be separate. But to be an urbanist, you've got to be a generalist. You got to deal with mixed use and everybody working together in the same space. And suddenly my head exploded and I realized that my degree was perfect. I was all about the city. I represented the downtown. All the food trucks where they wanted to go were in my district.
Yeah.
All the parking was in my district. So, like I had a reason to know about stuff like that. And my colleagues and I all had to be generalists. We all had to learn a lot about a lot of things in a short period of time. So it's not easy to be a city council member. And frankly, even saying that, the difference between you and me is that I got paid to sit through the meetings. I didn't get paid much, but I got paid to sit through the meetings. Anybody could do what I did. The problem is you've got to sort of become you're a professional dilettante. Like you don't get a chance to really dive too deeply, and yet you sort of have to in order to understand enough to make a vote that you can live with. Or maybe you don't. Maybe you just sort of blow it off. Every council member I've ever worked with has had to, shrug their shoulders at some point and just vote with their gut. We're just trying to make it less so. We should be striving to know as much as we can about the subject that we're voting on. But anyway, as far as food and restaurants go, in 2009, Michael Cassidy from the Uptown Cafe was frustrated that he couldn't get a 3-way liquor permit. He had, I think, a 2-way beer and wine. Now, I think I'm sure some of your listeners know about the costs of a liquor permit, a restaurant permit in Indiana.
Yeah.
The first thing to know about a liquor permit in Indiana is that there's no such thing as a bar permit in Indiana. They're all restaurant permits. Any bar you see in town has an obligation to serve food to up to 25.
Powdered milk.
Yeah,
or
powdered
a $25 ham and cheese.
Sandwiches. Milk, soda, stuff like that.
They will discourage you from ordering it by pricing it super high, but that is part of the obligation.
Right. If you go to any bar in this city, you can order a sandwich and they must serve you. And I've got a story about that too.
And then real quick,
but they're going to discourage you from doing it.
So there's the 1-way, which is beer. There's a 2-way, which is beer and wine. There's a 3-way,
which is beer, wine, and liquor. Right. I was going to talk about that.
Okay, cool. I just want to get that cleared out. Yeah.
So those are the 3 different types of restaurant permits in the state of Indiana. In Bloomington, the face value in the state of Indiana of a 1-way permit to serve beer or wine is $500. At least last I checked. The street value is $500 because there are plenty of those available. The permits are allocated by population. The 2-way permits for beer and wine, face value of $750, street value of $15,000 to $20,000 because they're all taken and you're gonna have to buy one from an existing one. They're limited by population. The 3-way permits, there's only one for every 1,500 residents. The face value is $1,000. The street value is $250,000.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And that's been consistent for a long time. Maybe it's gone up and down for a while. But it was.
I've always heard between $250 and $300.
Yeah. I mean, they don't make them. So we'll get to this. So in 2009, there wasn't a permit to be had for anything less than that. And Michael Cassidy was looking for a permit. He hired his lawyer to do some research. His lawyer found a little chunk of state law. Now, state law does not allow you to write a law for about just one person or place. They do it anyway. They do it by saying, if there is a city between 41,000 and 41,500 people, that city may.
Yeah.
So it's ridiculous.
Ways around it.
They did it with Bloomington and the annexation. They canceled the annexation illegally, partly because they wrote a law that just affected one place. They tried to pretend that it didn't. They said anyone who's started an annexation in the past 6 months. I mean, it was just totally arbitrary. But where did I leave off?
So he found his lawyer.
Yeah, I found this thing that said that it was written clearly for Valparaiso, city of Valparaiso. And it said, and I'm not quoting directly, but I'm close. If there is a city that has a historic district in which is contained A, a historic courthouse, B, a historic jail and sheriff's house, and C, a historic opera house, that historic district, it qualifies for 10 additional 1, 2, or 3-way alcohol permits for any building determined eligible by the city council within 700 feet of that historic district. It turns out that both Bloomington and Evansville qualify under this law. Clearly unintentionally.
Yeah.
I mean, they clearly wrote that to be very tailored to Valparaiso, which has all those things. And so this is 2009. We're intrigued by this knowledge. And suddenly we get, I start hearing from lawyers for big downtown bars saying, we want one of these permits right now. You have to give it to us. You know, like they wanted to flip their permit to be able to use somewhere else.
And then, exactly.
Yeah. And like we had no obligation to give it to us. In fact, the more I read the law, the more I realized that the real control factor is in order for a building to be eligible for one of those permits, the city council has to declare the site eligible. It has to be on a list of eligible sites for one of these permits. And so the council could declare a building eligible and the permit could go there. But if they misbehaved there, the council could strip the permit by just declaring the building no longer eligible, and when the permit expired, they wouldn't be able to continue operation. So they had a way of controlling the permit. It wasn't just a complete giveaway. At any rate, so for quite a while, there was a lot of question about, well, how do we use these permits? What should we use them for? But the immediate demand for it went away in 2011 after the 2010 census, because the city grew by more than 10,000 people. 8 new 3-way permits were allocated to the city of Bloomington. They went up for auction in 2011.
That's how I ended up at Sweetgrass, was because they bought one of them for $80,000, I think.
Right, yeah. So
they didn't have any bartenders. And so I came over, was the first bartender.
Wow. So you have some history with this.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, $80,000, $90,000 is what the permits were going for back in 2011. It was a golden time. And one reason that Bloomington should be upset about the census is that there's no question that the city grew since 2010. But the census said that we dropped by 1,000 people because the census took place 2 weeks after the pandemic started. And every college town in America sent their students home, and they didn't fill out the census where they were supposed to fill it out, which was where they lay their head most of the year.
So 2030, we should expect a pretty large increase.
Yeah. I mean, I actually went to the trouble in council of demonstrating that on the IU campus alone, there was an undercount of at least 3,200 students. If you look at the population of the dorms in the 2020 and the 2010 censuses, you'll see like absurd things like the entirety of McNutt and Briscoe together are in a single tract, and they reported a third of their normal population.
Wow.
Foster Quad is its own tract, and it had 1,100 people in 2010, and it had 1,100 people in the beginning of 2020, and the census reported them as having 8 people there.
Wow.
So like the entirety of that area of campus alone undercounted by more than 3,000 students. And so that would have put Bloomington in growth. There would have been at least one more 3-way liquor permit allocated to the city.
That's
for auction.
So I hope everyone else finds this as interesting as I do.
Yeah.
I'm nerding out over all this.
I am delighted to be in the audience of somebody who appreciates a nerd, because that's me.
So what?
N-E-R-D, nerd.
Oh, there we go.
Me.
Yeah, it's also Pharrell Williams' old band.
That's right.
All the girls standing in the line at the bathroom. Sorry.
Let's fast forward.
What about Michael Catt? Did they end up getting theirs?
They actually bought one of those permits. Yeah.
Okay.
They bought a permit in 2011. Case closed. It was a relatively good deal, and everybody was happy.
How did the council decide which areas were eligible?
Well, first of all, again, it was limited to the Courthouse Square Historic District.
And 700 feet.
Yeah. The upper bound of that district, for the purpose of the law, is Switchyard Brewing and the BPP, St. John's Playhouse. That's the northernmost part. I think the southernmost, it goes to just south of 3rd Street. So I think a hotel on the south side of 3rd Street might be eligible as well. So
did 10 full permits end up coming from that?
Not a single one has been issued.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
So that never ended up being a thing.
One of my colleagues was Susan Sandberg, and we disagreed on almost everything. But one of the few things that she and I agreed with, we had never had any daylight on, was support for the performing arts. We were both big supporters of the performing arts, and we were in agreement that what we should do with these permits is we would only allocate them to not-for-profit arts organizations that took over a building and rehabbed it. And they could contract with a restaurateur to run a restaurant there, but the arts organization would hold the permit, and the goal would be for them to generate enough revenue to be able to maintain the building. The big problem, for example, with the John Waldron Arts Center in 2011, the Bloomington Area Arts Council, the organization that had rescued the Waldron and raised money to rehab it, collapsed. Over 20 years, from 1991 to 2011, they didn't invest any money in the maintenance of the building. And by 2010 or so, they were thinking about raising the rent for performing arts organizations to perform. And they had $50,000, $100,000 a year roof maintenance expenses that they couldn't afford to fund. And it was an unwieldy organization that collapsed under its own weight. But we were faced with it, going away. We finally, the city managed to find a caretaker in the form of Ivy Tech, which managed it for most of the next 10 years. But a liquor permit in the basement of that building for a restaurant there would have solved that problem. And so, we were excited about doing it. And come 2023, I'm on my way out. I'm thinking, well, it's time to do something about this right away. So we looked into the details of the statute, and we discovered, to our grave disappointment, that there was a hitch. The hitch is that the ordinance says that all three of those items, the courthouse, the jail and sheriff's house, and the opera house, need to be separately listed on the National Register of Historic Places. And only the Monroe County Courthouse is listed as a separate item. So those other two are in the historic district. They're marked with historic markers because CFC is really good at doing historic preservation. But they are not separately listed on the National Register. And until they are, our city will not be eligible for this unique law written for Valparaiso. If you're wondering which those buildings are, the jail and sheriff's house is the building immediately north of the John Waldron Arts Center, which is the old city hall.
Which I did not know. You told me.
Fact,
I was going to ask because I went to record,
and that's where my office is.
Yeah,
in the old jail.
with you, and you come out the elevator and you see the concrete limestone, wall, and that's the wall of the old jail,
right.
Which I had been in Fountain Square Mall a million times,
right,
give or take, and had never noticed that or knew that.
Right. So Fountain Square is mostly the south side of the square. It's the entire front half of that square block. The jail is adjacent to it on the east and is a part of the building. You kind of have to go around to get to it from within. But yeah, you can see they built buildings.
Yeah,
really steadily,
really
sturdily
well.
Back then.
No, it's in great shape.
And CSC did a really great job of building an enclosed structure. They enclosed all the alleys between that building and other buildings, and it's a really cool thing to look at.
Yeah,
the Opera House. Just to finish this point.
Please.
The floor, the walls, and the facade of the building above what you now know as Andrew Davis Menswear is the Bloomington Opera House. It is substantially intact. And in 1885, James Whitcomb Riley himself gave a poetry reading in the Bloomington Opera House. So it still exists too, but neither one of those buildings is separately listed. They could probably be listed. It would probably take a year, maybe two, to go through the process of doing it. I'm thinking about doing it just on principle because I feel like it should be done. Because it's not there. Yeah, that's it. That's the jail. And go to Andrew Davis Menswear if you can pull it up too.
We're just driving around Bloomington on Google
Bloomington
Street View right now. Yeah.
Okay, and then just turn and look at Andrew Davis. There you go. So yeah, where that banner is, right? That whole building, that is the Bloomington Opera House.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. So perfectly above Andrew Davis Menswear.
That building will appear in photos going back to the late 19th century.
How much are you paying for your restaurant's business insurance? What's affordable for your needs? What does your agent do for you that isn't just policy writing? Tony Brown with First Insurance Group has a keen eye for the policies all restaurant owners and operators would love to have. Tony provides risk management and other HR resources free of charge as your agent. Tony has no waiting period for loss of business coverage starting from day one, minute one, unlike other carriers' 72-hour waiting period. Tony has no audit for liquor liability and general liability, saving you time so you can focus on running your restaurant. And Tony's insurance carrier is the preferred vendor of choice for the Indiana Restaurant and Lodging Association. Call or text Tony Brown with First Insurance Group today, 812-327-2321. Set up a free review of your current policy and see how Tony can help you protect your largest investment, your business. 812-327-2321. I do love, and obviously, a lot of it is due to CFC, how I see these pictures posted on Facebook of Bloomington way back when, and a lot of the exterior still looks the same on these buildings.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
I had my issues with Cook and with Bill Cook in particular, and he had issues with the city too.
Right.
We can talk about that, but you really can't impeach the quality work that they do. And if you walk through Fountain Square, I've had plenty of opportunity to do that since I work there now. You see all the photographs of the building through history and through the construction in the 1980s of Fountain Square Mall. And, they really preserved these buildings, which were money pits and falling apart in the 1980s.
I didn't know about just how much in despair Bloomington was in the 80s until I went to the DBI, Downtown Bloomington Inc., 40th celebration at the convention center a couple months ago. And they were showing pictures and talking about it. And I'm like, man, Bloomington was in rough shape. And Cook stepped in and really did a lot. Was it you I was talking to that was telling me about how Bill wanted to build on top of the Grand Plaza Hotel?
No, that wasn't true. Bill wanted to build his own tower. It was going to be called Cook Tower. It would have been a 9-story building on the corner of, I want to say, 8th and Walnut.
Okay.
Maybe 9th and Walnut.
And then that caused him to...
It was mid-90s, and the city council voted it down 5-4. Now, there's a lot of lore there from what I know and can recall. First of all, I remember seeing an image of the proposed building in the Herald Times, and it looked like the Ghostbusters Tower. It was kind of ugly. I was not impressed. I mean, he's done better work in other things, and the crown of the building looked really ugly. But whatever. The real issue was my predecessor, Pam Service, who served at the District 6 rep for 20 years herself, lived in a house on North Washington, just a block away from where this would be, and demonstrated how to people who were still living in that area in the 90s, who were not renters, how the shadow of the building would cast on their neighborhood. It would cast a big shadow on the neighborhood, and just you have to remember that until even now, there's been a very loud contingent of people who don't want the city to change, and they were absolutely opposed to height in the downtown. And so in 1995, this was very controversial. And only Bill Cook could have pulled it off, and he didn't pull it off. And I think that as a result of that, he basically decided to take his business elsewhere. So he moved Cook out of the city. He moved to Daniels Way. I mean, they had been in the city limits before, but he was so disgusted by the treatment he got at city council that he took his marbles elsewhere.
And is that when he went and did a lot of the West Baden stuff as well?
That's
not quite.
He didn't invest in other communities because of that.
Okay.
He was, I mean, I don't speak with any authority here, but I wouldn't
think they were connected.
That. Yeah.
So is this where you're talking about where Kalal is now? Is that where the tower was proposed to be?
Yeah, roughly. Okay. This is before that garage was built.
Right. So across from the Elks.
Turn around, go north.
The Topos.
It might have been. I think it might have been a block north.
Okay.
Yeah, so that where Lockerbie Court is now, I think that's.
Okay, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't recall. Don't quote me. It's either 8th or 9th Street.
But yeah, the northeast corner there of 9th and Walnut.
Yeah.
So and we're gonna just completely keep going way off any topic. I don't care. How did Smallwood get approved? Because there's always the 4-story limit, right?
Okay, that's another good question. So Smallwood was approved, and it's now known as the Avenue on College, which makes me laugh. It's just absurd. It'll always be Smallwood, which itself was a most ridiculous name.
Oh, it had a very interesting reputation when
Although
I was.
I think it's a historical
a young buck.
name, but yes, Smallwood. Anyway, so here is Smallwood. It was approved in 2003. That was the end of the Fernandez administration. I have to know that what was there before that, or what was not there anymore before that, that was the home of ST Semicon. ST stands for Sarkis Tarzian. Maybe you've heard that term. They're still, I think, involved in WTTS, WGCL. But Sarkis Tarzian was a Bill Cook-like entrepreneur who made television tuners. He invented some kind of a television tuner. So he was in the television industry back when Bloomington was big in the television industry. The first color TV in America was built in Bloomington.
RCA, where Catalan is, right?
The last color TV in America was built in Bloomington in the late 90s.
Okay, yeah.
So for 50 years, Bloomington made color television sets. And ST Semicon made those parts for TVs, but they also left a toxic the land was polluted. It needed to be cleaned up.
Okay.
So John Jacobs, the developer, basically tells the city,
as in Jacob School Music Family?
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to remediate this, but in order to do it to justify it, I'm going to need 700 beds. And so the city said, okay, fine, but you can't go above the height limit, which at the time was 80 feet. In the downtown, 80 feet, so 8 stories was allowed. And so 700 beds and 80 feet required the entire length of the block. And this was the first building of its kind downtown. And it set the tone. Like in other cities, in Lafayette, there's a 16-story apartment building devoted to students. In Champaign, there's a 22-story building down. There's multiple tall buildings downtown. In Ann Arbor, since the 1960s, there's been a 28-story apartment building that students have lived in. They're all sort of growing up as cities do. Bloomington, this was their way of growing up, and it was controversial from the get-go. Nobody particularly liked the massing of it. It's always seemed big, but I mean, I think to the credit of the architect, they were only imitating the building just south of it, which is the Justice Center.
Yeah,
which is a big brutalist mass there. This is not exactly the most pleasant building either.
No.
And so, but the Smallwood triggered a host. I mean, and they made exceptions to the planning ordinance at the time for Smallwood. And so the thing is, exceptions are the default zoning code. When the plan commission makes an exception, and the next developer will come along and say, "Why can't I have that?" And then the plan commission gives them the exception because they did it the first time. So all the buildings marching up College Avenue were basically inspired by Smallwood, and we have yet to have an actual proper tower. Can you go down to the Graham building, the one that Jordan mentioned earlier? Yeah, go down that way.
This is
now,
Garrett. We need to find a way to get this what you're doing
here,
on the
look
screen.
Look at this building. This is a beautiful building.
Yeah.
It sits on like a quarter acre.
So
it's a 9-story building, but nobody complains about it because it's not too big. It's not too long. It's elegant. It's well designed. We could stand to have plenty more buildings tall buildings if they looked like this.
Yeah. What's up there?
It's
always
office space.
It is office space.
It's owned by CFC. They fix it up
because I've never gone up there.
Mm-hmm.
I've been in a lot of most buildings, in town.
Yeah. I would love to live there. I would love to live there.
Yeah. That's so interesting that I heard the lore that Bill wanted to add, 2 stories to the top of that building and make that his.
I would be surprised. Yeah. That building is really elegant. He could have just taken the top floor.
Yeah, and already been set. Yeah, Bill and Gail used to come into O'Charlie's when I worked there when I first moved to town, and always sat at the same table and got strawberry lemonades and drove a $30,000 Cadillac, and we're always super, super sweet.
I mean, they were people of Bloomington.
Yeah,
absolutely. I think it was always good that Cook was loyal to the city where he got his start, and we should be grateful for that. I mean, that doesn't mean that his or my or your shit doesn't stink. Like we all have issues, but no one can say he didn't do good work.
Absolutely. All right, so we've got.
Anyway, so how do we get on this? We were just talking about liquor permits.
No, this is good. I wanted the rabbit trail. We got the rabbit trail. I'm here for the rabbit trail.
I'm delighted to be of service.
No, it's good. Well, we were talking about rabbits with Dan Thomas from Elm, so it's just on theme. I want to touch a little bit back on the food truck stuff because I thought that was really interesting when all that was going down, because you had the big cheese owners there, you had Rags and Nick's, and it was just this whole. Which I mean, I understood both sides, because we had been operating Food Truck Friday since September of 2014. And I remember the city was so happy when we were like, hey, we want to do this thing. They're like, oh my God, please do. Whatever brings trucks away from Kirkwood and keeps restaurants happy.
Yeah.
But it's such a tough act to juggle of, you have brick and mortars and they're paying rent, and you don't want competition to come pull outside and have a loud generator right next to your patio.
Right.
How many meetings did that end up being before you guys finally got a resolution, and what was it kind of like getting to that point?
I mean, at the time, up until 2020, the last term of council where I tried to change things when I was president in 2020, and in 2023, we changed the way that we do the schedule, and it may change back to the way we used to do it. But the city council used to meet bi-weekly, twice a month, the first and third Wednesdays in what we called regular session. And on the second and fourth Wednesdays, we would meet in committee of the whole. And it was hard for people to tell them apart because they looked the same. All 9 people were there. But in committee of the whole, you couldn't make a final decision. So we would introduce something in first reading at the regular session, and then the next week we'd actually hear the presentation of it. And then only after we'd heard it at least once in committee of the whole would we take a final vote on it at the next regular session. So we would have discussed it at least twice. I don't remember if we discussed it more than twice. I do remember when we discussed it. It was December 2014, and I'll explain why. But we again had that habit of open public comment. We would take as much public comment as we wanted. In committee of the whole, it was even more relaxed, and so we didn't put any time limit at all on people who wanted to speak to the issue. And I'm going to not name the first 2 people who spoke at public comment, but the first one went for 20 minutes, and he had 5 minutes of things to say. He just repeated himself for 20 minutes. He was a food truck owner. And the second one was a food truck owner. He went for 10 minutes. He had 5 minutes of things to say because we had no time limit. Since then we've been a little bit more cautious about putting everybody on a time limit. But that was what it was like. I mean, there were quite a few people speak. I mean, that probably took a couple hours. I don't even remember. I have to go back and watch the meeting. And then the next week we had public comment again when we were having the reviewing the issue and maybe voting on it, final vote that night. But so I don't remember what night it was, whether it was regular session or not, but I was in grad school at the time. I had 2 classes and I had term papers due in both of them, and I was way behind, and I was hoping to finish them, at least one of them that night. That meeting remember we started at 7:30 until the late teens when we moved the start time to 6:30, and that meeting went till 2:30 in the morning. 2 o'clock in the morning. I got home at 2:30 thinking I might still be able to crank out a term paper. And I realized not only that there was no way in hell I was going to do that, but that I was going to have to take it incomplete for the semester because I was just exhausted, between city council meetings like that and grad school. So that was a 6.5 hour meeting that included the discussion of food trucks. And that's why we need that kind of process reform. I'm delighted that finally the new council is progressive enough to reform our process.
Yeah, well, it seems like it's worked out.
But as far as food trucks went, there was big debate about why, food trucks weren't investing as much as brick and mortars were. It wasn't fair to brick and mortars. At the time, the brick and mortars seemed like they didn't want food trucks at all, but they realized that they couldn't say, that the city wouldn't say no. But there was quite a bit of doubt as to whether or not they could even operate in the downtown.
Yeah.
So we finally found compromises about a certain distance away from, and oftentimes, controversial issues get negotiated in open public meetings like that, where we're futzing around with little details that could have been done in a committee hearing, but we didn't have committees. We didn't have standing committees. to do that kind of work.
Just like how loud, how many decibels can it be?
Right.
How many feet from the furthest exterior
Right.
of the patio
Right.
do they have to be? But
I mean, happily, we did finally legitimize food trucks in that discussion. We passed the food truck ordinance, and there's been very little
it's been
downside, I think.
smooth sailing from what
Now,
I
it's
can
easy to
see.
say since you're, you're a paragon of the food truck industry, but I mean, there hasn't been any real complaints.
No, I mean, the trucks seem happy. The people I know in brick and mortar seem happy. Everyone seems to be doing their thing. There's enough room for everyone. The trucks serve a purpose. The brick and mortar serve a purpose. And we're all just slinging good food at the end of the day, or at least trying to.
As long as they're, following the rules, getting inspected, all that sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's at least one city council member who has started their own. It's not a truck; it's a push cart.
Yeah,
but
I tried calling her actually right before we started recording because she had a question for me.
I have helped her serve. I've got You want to hear my call to bring people to the stand?
Sure, yeah.
Ready? Hot dog.
Oh, that's
Hot dog.
That's good. See, I do that. Like, get your hot dogs here.
Hot dog?
Get your cold beer.
Hot dog. Your
glad
producer had to turn the microphones down there for a second.
I think we both moved away pretty decently.
Hot dog.
But yeah, that's she's been doing some food truck Fridays, and
dog.
I think I told you the first time we met. Anyway,
Yeah, I get it.
about my love for no turn on reds
Let's talk about
every
that.
intersection.
All
But
right.
no, we don't. It's fine. We don't need to.
No. Let me know why.
I know.
Now maybe it should maybe at 2:00 in the morning. But I mean, do you really want to get that much detail in the sign?
Yeah, I mean, instead of just cars just sitting there. Anyway, I didn't bring you here to talk no turn on reds.
I don't know why, Steve. Why is there no turn on reds?
Say again.
I don't know why. Tell me why
Garrett
there's so
wants to
many.
know.
Because there were at least 3 people killed in my district on 3rd Street by cars in the past several years. One of them was killed by a right turn on red on the corner of 3rd and Washington. The car just didn't see her and was doing a right turn, and she had the right of way and she was killed. And this is the story. Pedestrians are getting killed in ever greater numbers by ever larger cars that are paying less and less attention and who can't even see pedestrians because their cars are so big. So no turn on red is absolutely a safety measure for pedestrians to make it safer for pedestrians around town. It's part of changes that the city is generally making to make the environment safer for all. I think that there's an initiative called Safe Streets for All. It's a federal initiative that we're trying to live up to that equalizes the users of rights of way.
Right.
That cars should not have priority over other forms of traffic. And I'd love you to bring up. You want to look up Market Street, San Francisco, 1906. There's a fantastic video of 11-minute film that was shot. Look on there it is. That's it. Just put this up full screen. This is 2 days before the earthquake that destroyed San Francisco. And while there's a bit of there's clearly a little bit of planning here. There's some people who knew that this was being shot. But look at what a street was like before cars dominated it. Everyone owned the street. Cars went slowly. People crossed the street anywhere they wanted to. The street was not the exclusive domain of those vehicles or conveyances that could go fastest. I mean, look at this. This is one of the busiest cities in the world, at least at the time. And this is what cities were like before cars dominated streets. I used to be, and we should probably talk about the fact that I was a merchant who served food and had a liquor permit for a while. I owned the Cinemat. It's where the, the Bishop is now.
Yeah.
The corner of 4th and Walnut. And I remember thinking, well, I want Walnut Street to be two-way because I don't want people speeding past my business. I want them to slow down and see my sign hanging out and come and inspect my wares. I want them to come slowly through the city. I don't need a highway through the center of town as a merchant. They need to be able to get there, but they don't need to get there like it's an exit on a highway. Because this is this was perfectly fine. Cities got by great once upon a time. But
I mean, that looks kind of lawless. It looks, there's so much going on.
But I mean, there was a traffic engineer a century later in 2000. He died in 2008. A Dutch traffic engineer named Hans Monderman, who designed intersections to emulate this because it was just plain safer for everyone. There were no injuries. He designed intersections in the Netherlands where he could literally demonstrate that there would be cars, trucks, buses, and people and bicycles all weaving through the intersection like this intricate dance, very slowly. Nobody was hurt. Everybody watched. And he literally would demonstrate how safe the intersection was by facing away from the center of the intersection, putting his hands over his chest, closing his eyes, and then walking backwards into the intersection, and everyone just flowed around him.
Yeah, I mean, it's still chaos. I think the key there is everybody watched, and I think if everybody was attentive drivers, there wouldn't necessarily be a need. I think it's great to make things safer for pedestrians.
Well, the thing is, anybody who talks about road safety is not talking. I mean, if they want safety, they would try to reproduce this. What they're saying is they want it to be safe for their car to go fast, and your car is going to get you by the average speed of crosstown traffic in Manhattan is less than 9 miles an hour. The lights in the city are timed to go maybe 25, 30 miles an hour. I mean, I actually get places faster by not speeding downtown than by speeding, but there's just no good excuse. I mean, that used to be a highway. They used to be a state highway, Walnut Street, and eventually the state abandoned it as a highway because it got so busy. The city grew so big, and that's the way it's busy with other forms of traffic. So there it is. I did not want people zooming by on 3 lanes of one-way traffic. I would have rather have seen 2-way traffic where, people could see it from both ends and what have you. But that's another issue. The point being that there's no incentive for me to see people speeding past my place.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I just
it's true for every food truck owner.
I think it's the no turn reds are very well intentioned. I've never disagreed with that. Yeah. Anyway.
But I mean, you're frustrated because when there's nobody around, you should be able to turn.
And I feel like that's 90. As someone that has lived and worked downtown for the last 6.5 years up until January,
right?
95% of the time.
Thing is, in this building, I was in business from 2002 to 2009. Even then, 10% of my traffic was foot traffic, was people who walked to the store. If the roads, the converse of your argument is, if we make the roads safer for people to ride or walk, you'll see more people riding and walking. But only, I mean, if you don't make it safe for them, they're not going to show up, and then it's sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy. Well, nobody uses it because it's not, so we shouldn't build it because nobody uses it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm all for doing some protected bike lanes. Obviously I've gone to a couple of the meetings about potentially turning Walnut into a 2-way, and a lot of really interesting things that can be done. Obviously, I know the curb extension, corner extensions where Kirkwood turns into 3rd. Those are all efforts to slow down cars
and to make it to shorten the pedestrian distance that they have to cross.
Exactly. There's a really interesting, I can't remember the name of the Instagram, and their whole thing is redesigning streets and roundabouts and to make them safer. And it's fascinating.
A really great test is the snow test. When snow falls, look where the car traffic is. That's the only part that needs to be, like they're giant, at some intersections, they're giant swaths of asphalt that are just like, make it safe for cars to go real fast through an intersection.
Right.
But if you could neck down an intersection to just the part that people use, that you can see, and when the snow is falling, that's how intersections should be designed.
For sure. Last thing, as far as ordinances, city council stuff that
last thing we didn't even talk about
the Cinemat. Well, no, I want to. Okay, all right.
Well, no, go back to
no. I just want to. No. I'm getting to Cinemat. I want to.
I'm just getting started, man.
We're an hour and 15 in, and we're just getting started. You want water?
Yeah.
All right. Better business, better community. For over a century, the Greater Bloomington Chamber of Commerce has been a cornerstone of business growth and community development. They are dedicated to helping local businesses thrive. Their business is all about your business. Join the Chamber today. Call 812-336-6381 or visit chamberbloomington.org to learn more. But yeah, for parking, I know that's a hot button issue for people.
I love talking about parking. I love it, and I am not kidding. I love talking about parking.
So
and by the way, I am now the chair of the parking commission.
Yeah, you're on the parking commission. Did the one spot get filled?
We have a quorum. We're still filling spots, but we have enough to have a quorum. And they elected me chair. And now that I'm no longer on council, I accepted because I authored the ordinance creating the parking commission. I didn't want to actually lead it too. But now that I'm no longer on council,
might as well.
I'm okay with leading.
That's great. And then one of your other podcast guests, who I love dearly, Christopher MG, who's with the
He used
chamber.
to be on the commission. That's right.
He's not on the commission
anymore? He just
anymore?
stepped off. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
He thought that he had done his time, and we miss him because he was
dude, what a just great guy, man. Every time I see him, he's
okay.
He's just a very
schmuck.
I think Chris is great.
He's great.
All right, so let's talk parking meters.
What do you want to know?
Did we? What I've heard is when the meters kind of went in, we sold. Didn't we get a lump sum payment to a company that then makes the money off of money put into the meters?
God,
or is that
no.
false? Okay.
Oh, no. That was the city of Chicago.
Okay.
Chicago sold their parking. It was one of the worst contracts ever. And in fact, IU, the other place that did it was Ohio State. They sold their parking to a company for like decades for some big lump sum. And they are they totally missed the point of what parking is for. IU thought about it, and wisely they pulled back because they thought about doing it. The problem is it's not there to generate revenue for the city. It happens to generate a great deal of revenue.
Yeah.
But
it's there to keep people moving so spots don't get clogged up, right? Yeah.
Right.
And
You're
people
pricing
can find parking to go into local merchants.
Right.
Yeah.
And to give you a sense of the power of parking meters, the importance of parking meters. In the year before meters were installed, which was August 2013, the garages in Bloomington generated about just under $1 million in revenue. The number of the tickets written, citations generated just under $1 million in gross revenue for the city. In the year after meters went in, the gross revenue from parking garages and citations went down maybe 1%. And the city generated $2.2 million in meter revenue. That illustrates the demand for parking. And the thing is, no one has a parking need, okay? If everyone could theoretically get dropped off by cabs, okay? It's not practical, but I'm just saying it's what people have is demand. There's a demand for parking. And if you don't price the demand accordingly, people are going to take advantage of it. Before we had meters, we had the 2-hour rule. You could park your car for 2 hours for free. Well, the problem with that is some people who really need to buy parking can't because it's all taken up by people who don't need the parking but are taking advantage of the convenience of it. And then you had people who were doing the 2-hour shuffle who worked downtown all day and they would move their car to the next block because it was legal to do that. Like some significant fraction of traffic in any downtown are people cruising around trying to find parking for any lively downtown. And you need to curb that behavior by pricing it accordingly. Now, I also think that since August 2013, we've been pricing parking wrong. It's been $1 an hour for everybody, everywhere. Well, the most busy block in Bloomington is Indiana Avenue. The 2 blocks there, they're in huge demand. We could charge $2 or3 an hour, and we might still not quell demand. On the other hand, the block in front of the convention center, 300 or so South College, maybe gets used 3% of the time. Okay, we should not be charging $1 an hour there. We should drop the price, 50 cents an hour, $0.25 an hour, and we see what the demand is. We should adjust it accordingly, eventually or occasionally. I tabled an ordinance to drop the price of underused parking back in 2015 to drop the price to 50 cents an hour. On a 5-4 vote, it was rejected by council because they said it was too complicated. I don't know about you, but as a business owner, as anybody who uses the downtown, I mean, I was trying to save people money.
Yeah.
And we would have demonstrated also the need. I think that variable prices in the downtown are coming. And the parking commission is going to be doing the research on that. But it's the new council that's probably going to enable that. But we should be charging what the market will bear. Because the point of street parking, it's the most convenient parking, and it's for patrons. It's for people who are coming to do business with downtown merchants or offices. And people who need to stay for longer than a few minutes or an hour should park longer term in a garage and it should be cheaper. Before meters went in, it was cheaper to park on the street than to park in a garage.
Right.
We just made the market make sense. And to this day, downtown parking is generating $2.5 million or more, except for the pandemic when it dropped by about half. For a while.
Wow, I'm surprised it was only half, actually.
So I love talking about parking, and you got to stop me because I'll just keep.
No, that's good.
That
was a good rundown of what it is, clearing up
why meters are significant, why they're important.
And I've never had a problem with meters, but I love, there was obviously things where like the lot behind Uptown where I parked, it's kicked off at 8 a.m. and those spots never got into demand until 10. At the earliest.
There's a couple of ways to change. We could either not meter before a certain time, or we could have variable pricing for time of day.
Exactly.
People would have to read the meter and be careful about it. But, there's ways to handle that too. It's just that people need to start embracing complexity. I think the city's finally ready to do that.
And that kind of goes back to a little bit to my point on no turn on reds is that it's not, let's not just do a blanket and say, boom, this is good. This is what's needed. There's nuance, but
there should be nuance. I agree.
I also saw that you had Shatoya Moss on, and she's fantastic.
Yeah,
I just saw her on your guest list.
Not only was she on, so was her 6-month-old baby boy, Max.
Oh, really? Oh,
and Max was a co-interviewee.
Oh, yeah.
He talked quite a bit. He made some good noises.
Very insightful
during the interview.
Yeah,
and it was very entertaining. I'm hoping to have her back on to talk about specific issues.
So what's Steve Volan's backstory? Where are you from? Where'd you come from?
I was born in Gary.
Okay.
And I went to high school there, except for 3 years at another school. I spent my life since 1986 here in Bloomington. I went to Carnegie Mellon for 3 years. I lived in Pittsburgh. Love Pittsburgh. I still love Pittsburgh. Then I transferred here, and Bloomington just sort of there's a certain attractiveness to it that causes some people to just stay. I mean, it's always grown because it's been a nice place to live, and there was just enough to keep me here all this time. It's getting harder. I don't think that the Steve Volan of the 80s could repeat that in the 20s. It's gotten a whole lot more expensive because housing hasn't kept up with the growth of the community. Yeah. We don't have enough units to justify the low rents we were once used to. But other than that, I've been, I think the big reason I stayed here in the mid-90s was I was starting a business. I was starting the first internet access company in Bloomington. It was called BlueMarble.
Oh.
So you may know some people.
I've heard of BlueMarble, yeah.
BlueMarble.net is still a domain name that you can get access to because it was bought by Smithfield Telephone in 2003.
And you started BlueMarble.
I started BlueMarble in 1994, and I could have done it in Chicago. I could have just moved to Chicago, and I would have had a much bigger potential user base. But there were two reasons I stayed here. One of them was that it was cheaper to fail here. Like if we didn't do well, I wouldn't have put too much money into, I just knew the place better. It's now part of,
Look at that. Bloomingpedia has got you on there.
Yeah.
January 9th, 1995 in a bedroom closet.
Took a big ad out in the Herald Times to announce it. And we were the first by several months. If I had started a little bit earlier, I might have owned this town. But whatever. But the other reason I stayed was because IU was always an early supporter and adopter of what became the internet. And if you go back to the early 80s, IU was investing in internet type computing and research. And so there was a really good tech sector here already. Like I knew I could hire people to work for me if I needed a sysadmin or something. And that was enough to keep me here, and that's why I launched the company here. And it did okay. There's the old logo. Yeah. I didn't become Bill Gates, but I was able to buy a house. Thanks to that company. So I was very proud of it, and boy, I'll tell you, it was crazy times, the late 90s in the internet. I mean, there was no such thing as taking profits. It was all market growth. Like, it was all you could do. Everybody wanted to be on the internet. We were growing by leaps and bounds, and it was all we could do to keep up with it. And we basically, were a victim of our own success. We couldn't afford to keep growing. We had to merge with another company because we just didn't have the money to keep investing to grow. And Smithville Telephone did, and they needed our technical knowledge. And I think that they did pretty well with it. So,
yeah, that's fascinating. I had no clue.
Yeah.
So when did you say you sold BlueMarble?
We sold it in its entirety in 2003. The first part of it we sold in 2000.
Yeah. So and then you're like, let's go do city council and get your grad degree, right?
The grad degree came well after I joined city council.
Okay.
In fact, it was a response to city council. I represented a district full of students. It was one of the most unusual constituencies you can imagine. Students didn't know that the city council existed, or that we voted on things every day that every week that affect their daily lives.
Yeah.
The buses they ride, the water they drink, the fire department that comes when they call 911. And somehow I had to represent them, but it was really weird because right in the middle of our city was this sort of doppelganger city called the IU campus that was duplicating many of the functions of a city, but in a kind of a spooky and unearthly way. Like they don't do cities. Well, campuses are not cities. They're sort of imitations of cities, but they're all in the name of taking care of students who they see as their children, And so I decided I wanted to study this, and I went back to IU. Ironically, I went to IU to get a master's degree in geography to talk about the geography and history of campuses. And one thing to know about it is you can learn a lot about a campus in the term alma mater. Do you know that phrase?
Yeah.
People refer to the schools they went to as alma maters.
Yeah.
What does that phrase literally mean? What is it? What's the etymology of alma mater? It's from the Latin for, you
can just tell us.
Yeah. Well, it's the same thing as alumnus or alumni.
Mm-hmm.
An alumnus is one who is nourished. An alma mater is a nourishing mother.
Huh.
Look up the University of Bologna. That was the very first university. 1088 AD was the first university ever founded to call itself a university. University just meant a union, a guild of scholars. But if you look up their logo. There it is, right there. There's the phrase. The origin of the phrase alma mater comes from alma mater studiorum, which means nourishing mother of studies. Well, alma mater became a popular term for other universities to use. They eventually dropped the other Latin word studiorum. Once you drop the word of studies, now they can feel like that they can take care of all your needs. They'll house you, they'll feed you, but that means they're also going to supervise you. All in all, they tend to treat students like children, like their children. And the problem with that is students at 18, at least since the 26th Amendment was passed, are literal adults who can take care of themselves and don't need to be taken care of. And there's a reason why people don't like living in dorms, because they don't want to be spied on. They don't want to be surveilled. They don't want their housing to be dependent on their academic status. Like if you get arrested in Dunn Meadow for protesting, you can be kicked off campus now by the president, and that means you lose your housing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the downside of one entity owning all of it.
Yeah.
In fact, I demonstrated late in 22 that you could draw a city council district that was not only all students going to IU, it was all students living in IU housing, where there was a single landlord for the entire city council district. It's possible that there could be a permanent seat on the city council. There's so many people living in IU-owned housing.
Wow, that's fascinating.
Yeah, and so, I had to reckon with it. Why does the university do what it does? Why don't they cooperate more with the city? How do I run this city when there's this big state entity in the middle, sort of, annexing from within the city? Because they take, every time they buy land, they take it off the tax rolls. They don't really take part in city governance. They don't really appreciate what a big deal it is that Bloomington is here. I love when people say, Bloomington without IU would be Martinsville. It would be Bedford. It would be no place. It would be some lame town, And no one's ever asked the opposite question. What would IU be like without the reasonably cool town of Bloomington providing it with all the services that it provides? Let me take you to Clemson University. Let me take you to Ohio University in Athens. Let me take you to the University of Connecticut in Storrs, Connecticut, which isn't even a thing. There is almost no Storrs. There's like no town there. I went to Storrs, Connecticut about 10 years ago. There was one restaurant in Storrs, Connecticut. It was a great restaurant called the Dog Lane Inn. You know what their motto was? The Dog Lane Inn. Come, sit, stay. That's a clever name thing for a restaurant. But that was the only restaurant in Storrs, Connecticut. Imagine if you took a giant chunk of IU and dropped it into the Hoosier National Forest. That's the University of Connecticut. There's nothing there. They have to have their own fire department because there are no services to be provided. And it's so lame that they have trouble recruiting faculty. People commute to Storrs from Hartford, from Providence, even from Boston, because there's nothing there. If I can cuss on this podcast, there's fuck all in Storrs, Connecticut. All right. In contrast, Bloomington houses 70% of the students and all the faculty and staff, and we punch way above our weight. There's lots to do, lots of restaurants. College towns are not all the same.
Yeah.
Okay. And this city has built itself really without any help from IU. I mean, IU has been around. They provided the raw materials, but they don't know how to build or construct cities, really. And so that's what I finally came to the conclusion of in my writing, that, universities are really good, but campuses are like, why do they have campuses? Why do they keep people out? Why are universities anymore property plays rather than guilds of faculty and students?
Well, we talked about that with the Vault Pub where I do bingo at the IMU, and some of these places where everything's inside. It's not inviting you in.
Yeah.
You can't tell there's a Starbucks in there, or, it's not, it's just designed very differently than any.
Well,
city.
here's a good example of how campuses, campuses are retail deserts in the same way that certain underfunded, poor neighborhoods and cities are food deserts. Where on the IU campus can you find? I used to get to give this this example. Pretend that you're talking to the IU trustees, and you're giving a speech. I'm talking to the trustees. Hello, trustees. I want you to pretend that you are Johnny Fresh Person, and it is October the 1st. It's a Friday. It's 5:30 in the afternoon, and you've been here for all of 6 weeks, and you've finally gotten acclimated. You've just discovered that all your homework that you thought you were going to have to do this weekend is done, and you get to go out and just chill. And you decide you're going to explore the new town that you're living in, of Bloomington, and you're living in Briscoe Quad. Now, you're in Briscoe, in this tower near the stadium. If you were to walk in any direction, how far would you have to walk to find the first retail establishment where there was a sign hanging outside welcoming people into their establishment, whether a restaurant or a store? And you have to think about it. Where's the nearest place to Briscoe?
I mean, does Convenient Mart?
Convenient Food Mart is literally a half a mile away. Okay, there is no retail in the vast. Anywhere on campus. All the retail is buried inside a building because they don't want just anybody to come by. It's supposed to be just for students. Gresham Food Court is not a restaurant where anybody can eat. I guess that it is technically, but there's no sign outside saying "Come on in."
Yeah.
There's no commercial imperative. Campuses are very suburban. They separate everything, and that's not good for retail. Unless you assume that the people have cars. Well, then if the campus also bans cars, then what you have is this giant park. Okay. Well, the problem with parks is this is what I call third place theory. It's the sociologist Ray Oldenburg, who talked about the three places that you need to To get through the day, to get through the month, you need your first place, which is home, your second place, which is work, and third places are places like the Chocolate Mousse, are places like restaurants. They're places where they're hair salons, church halls, coffee shops, places where people gather, they're social, where civic life thrives, okay? Where are the third places on a campus? I mean, I love to point the example out also in the IMU, along with the vault. The vault is an example of a third place. It's in the basement of the IMU, which is a building the size of an aircraft carrier, set back from the nearest street by a moat called the Campus River and Dunn Meadow, okay? Also in that building is a place where I teach one of my classes. There's a food court on the mezzanine level, and one of the food court entries is called the Pan-Asian Lantern Street Kitchen. Okay, so a street kitchen implies sort of a push cart, right? Like Blade Runner, you see the guy like the Los Angeles dystopia 2019, and and people selling fresh food from a push cart in the middle of the street. Okay, well, where is the nearest street? It's 7th Street, which is across the moat. Like it's the opposite of a street kitchen. I love to make fun of it. Okay, because they're trying to get the vibe of the type of business that people who watch the No Dishes podcast are in.
Right.
But they do a terrible job of it. I love also, if you go to the food court that's north of Forest Hall, now it was built a few years ago, inside the food court, there is a place called the Stone Grill, okay? And when they opened up in 2013, they put up a logo, and this is the Stone Grill, and I have a picture of it. I should give it to you. But it says, the Stone Grill circa 2013. They meant to say established 2013, but instead they put circa. Around 2013 they opened. They were trying to emulate all the branding of a good quality restaurant.
Right, yeah.
And they just fell on their face, just as this clumsy little thing. So, universities are like, and that's all university-owned dining. The Chocolate Mousse is in the university. It's one of the rare examples of a real legit business, selling its product there. But where are they putting you? They're putting you in the bowels of this union building. God forbid it should be outside. God forbid it should be facing the street where people might walk by and opportunistically stop and have an ice cream. You have to know it's there. You've got to be going there on purpose. It's a mall at best.
Right.
And, even College Mall does a better job of branding than a university does, because they somehow, they want to serve people, but they want to control them as well. My favorite example is, the IU Auditorium, right?
Of course.
In that same building is the Neil Marshall Black Culture Center, the IU Theater and Drama Center, and most recently the IU Cinema, okay? The huge complex full of fantastic visual and performing arts exhibitions of every kind all the time. Where is the goddamn diner on the corner across the street where you can have a cup of coffee and a piece of pie and talk about the great show you just saw at the the Neil Marshall Black Culture Center or the IU Theater? It was Bear's Place, but that was half a mile away, and now that's closed.
Yeah,
okay.
There's nothing over there.
If that building were airlifted and dropped across from the convention center, if it had been built there decades ago, it would be surrounded by restaurants.
Oh, absolutely.
And Bloomington would be one of the most thriving entertainment centers of any city of its size in the nation. But that's not how campuses work. They isolate themselves from the world. They, they have control over this land area, and by gum, that's what they're going to do. Why aren't there push carts on the corner of 10th and Eagleson in front of the library? On a busy day, there are hundreds, thousands of people going by there. There would be push carts lined up if IU allowed it. The reason is because the city controls the right-of-way of 10th Street up to the curb, and IU controls it from there on. And IU does not want anybody there. They do not want. Cities are messy. Cities are inherently, places of relative liberty. As long as you follow certain rules, you can do what you want. That is not what the IU campus is. It's sort of more of a park, and a park. There are rules for being in a park. You can only do so many things, but nobody lives in a park. It's not a good first place. I guess people work in office parks, but they don't work in the grass. They're in a building. Maybe they're looking at the grass all day. And you can't set up a business in a park. It fails the first, second, and third place tests. It's a park is a pen, a holding pen, a separate location that doesn't really serve people except very occasionally. We need green space, we need parks, but we don't need to build our cities as parks. And if IU were to open up and maybe stop feeling like they had to be one unified territory, blend and meld with the city, we could do amazing things.
Yeah.
The No Dishes Podcast is brought to you by VisitBloomington.com. VisitBloomington.com is the best resource for restaurant and culinary information, special events, fun activities, places to stay, and more in our area. We share a similar mission here on the No Dishes Podcast of highlighting local businesses and the people who make our community unique. We can't thank them enough for hopping on board. Check them out at visitbloomington.com to easily plan your next meal, visit, or night out on the town.
Absolutely. Do you see the first word in the about section?
Vibrant stores.
I was like, Garrett, I was really hoping Garrett didn't change. I was like, I really need you to see that.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, about vibrant stores.
I mean, the Betsy Peterson Square must have been just invented.
Hip noodle joints.
They have. Celebrate Mansfield. Boy, this is not the place I saw 10 years ago.
I didn't know they made noodles out of hips.
Yeah,
huh?
I mean, you could zoom in, find the dog lane in. But,
yeah, there you go.
There's like one. I mean, it's a tiny, tiny fraction of Bloomington.
We'll have you back on some. Yeah, look at this wannabe ice cream place. We'll have you back on sometime, and we'll just shit on stores the whole time.
Yeah. Well, did we do that? I will bring receipts. I'll bring receipts.
All right.
But
we need to travel there first. And then
I already have. I've been.
I'll
bring you photos.
We'd come back after our.
It's our first on
with you.
location episode.
Yeah, it's just going to stores to rag on them.
The gist of it is that what you do on this podcast and the business you guys are in are important for reasons beyond mere commerce. It's not anybody can cook food at home, but a restaurant provides public life. Is this where people go? People don't go to parks to talk about politics. They go to pubs. They go to bars. They go to restaurants. They don't. They don't talk about the issues of their community. Standing on a grass. They do it with a pint or a coffee cup in their hand. What you guys do is important for the life of the city, and we are in we are a city that has a giant college in it that doesn't really play nicely with others. It's not hateful or anything. It just keeps to itself. We got to find a way to get them to open up a little bit and to say, listen, maybe build a building in the center of town. Maybe don't have a contiguous campus. Give us a chance to make your town. I mean, Bloomington is a desirable place with expensive housing because people like it here, because it's nice here. And IU brings the work, but it wasn't IU that made the area nice. It was Bloomington that made it nice. And I'm not saying the Bloomington city government. I'm saying the people of Bloomington, the merchants like you, made it a place that was desirable. And that's what's really important. That's why what you're doing is important. You make this a place that people want to live. And we need to persuade IU that that's why they're doing, but one reason they're doing well is because Bloomington has done that work. So I don't know what that's worth to you or your listeners, but it's certainly, it's not an accident that I'm here.
No, yeah. No, it's such an interesting take because we've chatted about that before. I can't remember if it was before we recorded on your podcast or after, but it's very interesting. You in our few interactions we've had, which I think this is like number 4, it was not too many. You always bring up interesting points that I haven't thought about. I haven't thought about
that's my curse.
No, it's good. I really enjoy it. I hope our listeners do too. Let's talk about the Cinemat now that you've patiently waited. So we got to the point where you sold the business in 2003. You went on to city council.
I opened Cinemat in 2002, but we sold I had left the company in 99. I hired my brother to run it because he was better at it than me. And I did other things. And in 2002, I started the Cinemat. And I didn't think about there. Wow.
Yeah. Wow, Gary found the picture of it.
Yeah. Back when the idea of renting, physical media was still a good idea. It wasn't even that good idea then. So let's want to get that straight.
How long was it there for?
It was there for just under 7 years. And if you go into the Bishop now, it's still primarily laid out the same way that it was. Before it was the Cinemat, it was the Cellar Lounge for 3 years.
Okay.
Before that, it was the Wild Beat, which Jeff Meese started in 1995. And before that, I mean, it's always been owned by the Knights of Columbus, and they were my landlord. But I always knew that I wanted to do more than just a video rental store. So the two windows to the left were basically the half of the store that was devoted to video rental. But I rented more than that space because I knew I wanted to do more than just a video store. And there's an opportunity here. So in those two windows on the right, that's the space now. That's the performance space.
Nice.
In the building. And I eventually put the wall up that separates the saloon part from the performance space. And the first thing I did was, before we put the wall up, was try to make it a coffee house. Well, those windows don't open. And when I moved in, the Knights did a lot of renovation for me. But when I asked for lighting, they gave me the cheapest lighting they could. It was fluorescent. It was terrible. And it was not a comfortable place to have coffee. And I didn't really understand coffee culture. And so within a year or so of that, we shifted, put the wall up, and tried to make a screening room to show films. And I started buying the rights to second run films to show in the screening room. I had a hard time making it work. It was just too expensive. I even teamed up with the Writer magazine, the late Peter Bellato. The Writer film series showed a few things with there, but that didn't work either. And so by 2007, just when I was deciding to go out of business, instead I pivoted and decided to make it into a live music club.
Nice.
I had the stage built that was there. I eventually put sound deadening material in the ceiling because Jared Thompson of the Comedy Attic wanted to start up a comedy club upstairs. But I had gotten, for the screening room, I got a beer permit, a one-way permit to serve beer. And because that was affordable, I could do it, and it was great. And then excise taught me a very interesting lesson in Indiana alcohol law circa 2004. So to enter the screening room, you had to go into that door on the left and go through the area that was where the movies were rented. And then it was a U-shaped space.
Just like how it is in the Bishop right now.
And in the back was the bar, and you bought your tickets there, and you entered the screening room, which had an extra wall there. So it was legal. One of the big concerns I had was serving people under 21. I didn't want to serve them, but they were customers of the video store. And the excise told me that it would not be legal for minors to be in the building at all once I started serving. And I said, why? And that's when I learned that state law said that it was legal for a minor to come all the way through the building, through the videos, buy a ticket, and to go into the screening room. The screen was right against where those windows are. And sit down in the dark next to somebody drinking a beer. That was legal, because they were taking part in a lawful, non-participatory activity. The act of watching a movie was not considered to be participation. But that same minor could not just come into the store, look for a video, and then come buy it without even ever going into the screening room. It would have been illegal for them to shop, because shopping was participatory.
Huh.
And so I was like, you've got to be kidding me.
That's
We're not selling them alcohol at all. They're not even coming to the alcohol part. So here's what I came up with. The law at the time said that there were 3 reasons minors could be on the premises: if they were taking part in a lawful, non-participatory activity, if they were eating food that they'd ordered at that place, or if they were waiting for food that they ordered at that place. So I had a light bulb, and I manufactured a bunch of laminated numbers. And I trained every customer of mine who was under 21 that when they came in, they had to come to the counter first. And they would come in, and I'd say, "Would you like to order a hot dog? I mean, are you planning to shop for movies? Would you like to order a hot dog?" "Yes, I would." And I'd hand them an order number. Then they go shopping for a movie. They come back with their movies, and I go, "I'm so sorry, I forgot to start that hot dog. Do you still want me to make that hot dog?" And they go, "No, that's okay. I'll just take these movies."
What an amazing workaround.
But because they were waiting for food that they ordered, they were allowed to be on the premises.
Great.
And excise said, yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
I love that. They're
So
just
that
like,
was
hey, we're
ridiculous.
just executing the law. And like, you found a loophole. Great.
Right. A couple of years later, I think they finally got rid of that law, which was dumb.
So,
But yeah, that's what I had to do to do business, to be able to serve alcohol in this restaurant / bar. That was
so
also a video
you're
store.
a restaurateur bar owner. And
I was, yes. I am the son of Greek immigrants, so I have that bone in my body. We all think about starting a restaurant.
Okay,
and
yeah.
that was mine. I would so do it differently again. I kind of have that itch again. I'm sort of thinking about a pub.
That'd be fun. Absolutely. What? So it closed in 2009?
Yeah, summer of 2009.
Oh, so that I moved here August of 2009.
Yeah, it closed
Because
in
that's
May.
why I was like, man, it looks familiar, but
Yeah.
I don't remember it.
You were, yeah, because it was the last. I mean, like I knew I could compete with Netflix when they were sending out discs, because you could get a movie that night where you had to wait in the mail for the movie you just ordered.
Yeah.
But when they announced streaming, I knew that was the
Right.
writing on the wall.
Well, I did
And,
start
yeah.
coming down in like 2006, so I guess I would have seen it coming through town
Right,
before
but-
I moved down
The
here.
thing was, the money was always in alcohol. I didn't
Right.
understand that because I'm not a drinker. I've always thought the alcohol was revolting. I just don't like it. But I should have learned that that's where the margins were.
Yeah.
And that had like what I really wanted to do, and people who go back to Cellar Lounge or Wild Beat Days will remember this. So when Jeff Meese had a nightclub there, again, the stage was right behind where those two windows were on the right, and you had to come all the way through there. And the bar was directly behind it, behind those two windows in the back. But there were big pillars in the middle that before I built a wall there, and there were no good sight lines from this whole half of the building. So that's why I took. It was the bishop did the right thing by putting the bar on the left side of the building because that made more room for people to see a show.
I didn't know that's originally where Rhinos was.
And that's right. That's
Yeah,
what it was
that's-
before.
yeah.
It was before.
Yeah,
it was
that
Rhinos
just showed
before
up
the Wild
91 to
Beat.
93. It was
Rhinos
Rhinos.
moved down the street to that strip mall before it was.
Yeah, we used
into a
to
building.
when I worked at the stand, we'd always have like, oh, the Rhinos kids are here because
Yeah.
all the kids from Rhinos
Yeah,
came
that's
over.
right.
And they're ordering snow cones.
So
and-
Rhinos kids would know this too. So if you enter the Bishop to this day, there's still a post. There's like a little half wall, and there's a post that I had that used to be part of a tunnel. Like the door used to be where that post was. You had to come into this tunnel to get into the rest of the space. And I wanted that space for retail to be able to show stuff.
Right.
So I took out the tunnel. If I'd been smart, I was going to reinstall the tunnel and just leave a window on one side and then line the entirety of that little tunnel with video display shelves and just put up nothing but VHS tapes and have the most disgruntled clerk ever sitting in that window and pretend that it was the world's smallest video store kiosk. Okay.
So-
and the secret to the place would be that there would be one DVD on the shelf. The rest would all be VHS. And if you tried to rent the DVD, the disgruntled clerk would stare at you for a minute, then grudgingly pull a secret lever that would let you into the speakeasy behind.
Oh,
the thing.
okay.
I opened up a bar, a secret bar behind that. That's how you would have had to get in.
So now if you do open a pub and scratch that itch, that could be how you get in.
I hear that there is actually a place. Isn't the library sort of like that?
Yeah, the library is, there's a trick to getting in. It's not just, have you been over there yet?
I have not. I've heard about it.
great.
I want to check it out. But I have thought about barcades as well. The
Yeah,
Cade
mhm,
did that.
absolutely.
But I would like to have more. I mean, the Orbit Room's well curated pinball machines. But I'm talking about like a full on warehouse full of video and pinball, old school with beer and wine.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, we got library. Need to check it out. I've been there. It's awesome. I haven't gone since I stopped drinking, but I heard they have great mocktails too. Orbit Room's fantastic. I actually have a text from TV Mike.
We could be a couple of teetotalers. We'll go get some mocktails.
Yeah. Ooh, there we go. Let's go.
I would do
And
that.
we can keep continuing with our no turn on red debate.
Yeah.
We were 4 mocktails deep. Things got a little hairy.
Man, I was flying.
So you want to see Jordan heated? Get him a couple fake gin and tonics. That'll get him riled
We'll
up.
Sugar him up.
Yeah. But yeah, Cade, awesome. I love Jeremy and Chelsea. I saw Michael the other day at the Project School Gala. Always love I told him, I was like, yeah, I haven't been in the vid in a while. He's like, that's good. He's like, I have people that come in blacks and they're like, sorry, I haven't been in. I quit smoking. He's like, that's good. Like, oh, you know, he's like, I'm not mad about it. Like, that's a good thing. What about you? I mean, you've lived downtown for
I used to live right around the corner. I used to shop at Black's.
Yeah, because I heard you had some nice soirees up there.
I was wearing a vid shirt yesterday. I mean, yeah, it was, you know, like it was a kind of the hipster place to go before Atlas opened and the Bishop opened and places like that. Back in the aughts, it was, you know, I had a good times at the vid, even though I don't drink. I just hung out with friends.
Oh, I loved it. I did drink, and I ordered doubles there like an idiot. And Michael, the owner, is like, do not order doubles. You're already getting a double. They have strong pours at the vid.
I mean, just the stories about if you go there just for shiflet, you know.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So I've reached out to have. I need to go ask him in person because I know Mike. I love Mike. He loves Spanish burgers. He loves Dole Whip. But I reached out to the fan page. His daughter said he wasn't interested. But I feel like if I went,
too bad.
I feel like if I went and asked
because you could do a multi-part series on the stories he has to tell.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. The fights, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That was his band. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a local legend.
Oh yeah, Mike Shiflett. No, yeah, yeah, Mike Shiflett. The fights, Garrett. Yeah.
The Bloomington Town Planner is a community calendar owned and published by local residents John and Sharon Martin. Mailed out to Bloomington homes in December of each year, it features school schedules and community events. And don't forget the coupons at the bottom of the calendar. They'll save you money and help you decide on the next restaurant or retailer to check out here in the Bloomington area. Town Planner also has an online calendar which will be found at townplanner.com. Make sure to sign up for their weekly e-newsletter so you can stay on top of all the fun events going on around town.
That video, I remember the first time I saw this video. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
I ain't playing.
That's him.
What about, we got just a little bit of time left. You know what? You might break Mark Hyduke for our longest episode. Although I don't know. That one was pretty
just as long as I'm interesting. No, I don't.
No, you're great. Oh, owner of Mother Bears.
Oh,
it was.
Okay, I just have to say this as a restaurant patron for decades here. I do not understand why it was that when Mother Bears, Ray McConaughey, I guess, who started Mother Bears, then he opened Bear's Place. Then they opened the third location was on 17th and Walnut. Why they called it Mother Bears as well? They should have called it Baby Bears. Why did they not call it Baby Bears?
Let's get Mark on the phone right now. Call him.
No, it would have been Ray's. Would have been Ray's decision decades ago.
Oh, okay, yeah,
it was decades ago.
But he might know. He might have asked him that at some point.
While there was a Mother Bears and a Bear's Place, why they didn't call a place Baby Bears and they could have had a Goldilocks reference.
Yeah,
too.
and all you do is serve oatmeal. Pretty good little oatmeal joint.
Porridge. Sorry, Goldilocks Porridge and Company. There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Move over Partridge and Company. We're having Porridge and Company. What are some of your other favorite spots here in town, Steve, that you like to dine out or obviously not drink, but go hang out?
Favorite spots? I mean, I think more favorite desserts.
Ooh, okay.
But most of them are gone. The Trojan Horse used to serve chocolate baklava. Oh. It was the bomb. Speaking as somebody who grew up Greek and eating Greek food, the chocolava was one of my favorite things. Like, there's the perfect Greek American food. That dessert was fantastic. The mini indulgences at Lenny's, the little shot glass of chocolate mousse, perfect. It's not too much. It's delicious.
MOUSSE.
Yes. Yeah. Chocolate, no relation
chocolate
to.
Mousse.
Yes.
Now they do carry chocolate mousse ice cream. Thank you, Michael and Sammy. But yeah, chocolate mousse, MOUSSE.
Perhaps the single greatest dessert I've ever had was the Bailey's cake at Irish Lion, which has not been on the menu for a while. Though the last time I tried it, it was not. It was a shadow of its former self. But that used to be one of the most. I would give anything for the recipe. I would learn how to make it. It wasn't quite cheesecake. It was so liquidy, and yet it stood up. It was firm enough to stand. Like it just. Bailey's Irish cream somewhere in it, but what an astounding dessert.
Not a liquid, not a solid.
Yeah, it wasn't cakey like a cheesecake. It was one of the greatest desserts ever, and I like more as much as the Lion itself closing. The loss of that dessert has really crushed me. I also like the Liffey trout at the Lion. But I used to know where all the best desserts were, and a lot of them have gone. The way of the dodo. what other? I mean, I find a place and I like a dish. Like a favorite dish. I think when I go to the chocolate mousse, I have like chocolate with Butterfinger and Heath or Snickers.
Oh yeah, there you go.
It's just the best.
We try to give you a blank canvas to paint on. That's our thing. We got a lot of different ways you can customize, and
we could stand. I mean, Mother Bear's is a fantastic deep dish joint. We could also stand a New York pizza joint. I have tried pizza slices from. There was a place in Lower Manhattan. There was a hole in the wall called Champion Pizza, and it was a revelation. Like I couldn't believe how good that slice of pizza was. And I finally understood why New York pizza, people rave about New York pizza. It's a different vibe than Chicago deep dish. I mean, I've got Pequod's pizza in my freezer right now.
Yeah.
In fact, I should have brought Pequod's pizza. We could have eaten that.
Oh yeah, nothing. That would have made great content as us just chewing.
Yeah.
No, that's yeah.
But I mean, it was the pizza that if you guys talk about the bear on this show.
It has come up before.
I mean,
I need
that scene that Richie where he goes to where he's learning how to be a good at serving. He goes to Pequod's to run and get a deep dish pizza for one of his guests.
Okay, nice.
It's like the deep dish pizza in Chicago. Forget Gino's East. Yeah, but
have you been over to Goodfellas? Obviously, it's out of Louisville, but that's kind of New York.
Is it the one? Is that on Kirkwood or is that?
Yeah, next to Nick's.
I know. I've seen.
It's a solid.
I've
slice
seen drunk students getting stuff, but I have to go try it.
Yeah, no, it's good. I mean, as far as if you want like the New York style, that's probably the closest. Rockets obviously does their thing. Love Rockets.
I'll tell you, my new favorite place has got to be Yatagarasu. The ramen?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh. You know what? I've only been once or twice.
It's a God's gift.
Order extra pork belly.
The meat, the egg. The first thing is just the egg that they put on it. Like, I mean, it's a little bit of heaven. My new favorite go-to.
They say
place.
They have live DJs Friday and Saturday. I want to see if I can go DJ. I've never DJ'd a ramen bar. I've DJ'd a lot of things, never a ramen bar.
Yeah. They stopped serving at 11, and that's when I'm out. Ed Schwartzman's a friend of mine. I love Buffalo Louie's. I don't think I've ever met friendlier staff than and I don't, no offense to anybody else. But every time I go into Buffalo Louie's, they treat me like a king, and it doesn't matter that they don't know who I am.
That's so great.
I love it. I love Gable's Bagels too. He's really killing it. He and I actually talked about doing a barcade together.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. And then I snapped out of it. It's like, why are you going to pour money into a restaurant, Steve? You're an idiot. Don't do it. But yeah, I still think about it. So I represented downtown. I knew my district pretty well. I ate at all those places. I really love me some Malibu Grill, Uptown Farm. I've been to all those places. I love Samira. Samira is a great restaurant.
Oh yeah,
underappreciated. I still miss Darn Good Soup. Their West African peanut soup was Nels. Please find a way to let me buy your West African peanut soup. It was so good.
When we canceled our Spanish burger.
Social. I love the tacos at Social.
Social's good too. Mm-hmm. I've got Susan and Ashton coming on from there, and I've known them from their back when they worked at B-Dubs, and I was at O'Charlie's, and we all got out of that corporate chain life, you know.
Yeah.
But when we canceled the Spanish burger, it had been around since before the stand, so it went back to the 40s.
Wow.
And
what was on the Spanish burger?
Well, so it's almost like a meatloaf burger. It's a baked patty and a tomato sauce, but
that sounds good.
It just didn't sell that much, and so then you have a problem with keeping product fresh, and then it's a vicious cycle, you know. And we tried to bring it back, and it just never, because we took it away for the winter when we slowed down, but then we just never got steam again, so we just canceled it. But we released the recipe. Now, we said, here's the recipe, but I had so many people say, I wish Darn Good Soup did that.
Yeah.
But they might come back.
Well, so I actually have a recipe book from Darn Good Soup because we know the owners who
have the recipe book?
I have the recipe book.
Garrett has a recipe book from Darn Good Soup.
Get my number after the show, man. I'll text you some photos.
He says.
I don't even cook. My mother had the best culinary advice ever. 6 words. Stephen, she said, get out of my kitchen. I don't cook to save my life, but
you'll find a way.
I'll find a way to make that soup. So if you've got the recipe, I want that soup.
I'll make a mean egg sandwich.
Now, do you see why we need time limits in city council?
Yeah. I think we did good. I think we're almost like 2 hours on the nose.
I was going to say, who's going to watch this much? You're going to have to split it up into 2 episodes.
Don't care.
Well, I mean,
I think it's interesting. I hope other people find it interesting.
I think you're interesting too.
Oh, stop! Get out of here,
Go on.
shucks.
But that's because you let me talk. Most people.
Look, Jordan, you didn't cut me off once.
Politicians will fill all the time you give them. I'm not even a politician anymore. I crashed and burned last week. I'm fine with it. I'm moving on. I've got my podcast. I'm still involved in politics, but we will talk.
Yeah,
we will fill the time allotted to us. So you've got to limit us.
Yeah, we're recording this right after the Tuesday after Election Tuesday. Made a great run for county commissioner. A lot of years in public service. You're such a fascinating guy. You look at things through such an interesting lens. I'm so glad you took the time to come on here and chat with us. I hope everyone sees the connection between a lot of the stuff that does affect restaurants that you've been involved in over the years, and checks out the 812 Show. How do they find your podcast?
The 812show.org, although I think the URL has some problems. You can also find it wherever you get podcasts. Just look up the 812 or my name, Steve Volan. Either way, you'll find it in short order. There it is. There's the logo, the 812show.org, with the little sawtooth of the Showers building in the background.
Yeah.
Now, the one thing I'll say about the show is that now that I'm no longer a candidate for county office, it is safe for me without conflict to start expanding to talk about more than just city government. So I'm preparing to talk to county officials about the office because they need explaining more than the city does.
Yeah.
Counties are so confusing. I can talk to townships. I can talk to school board, the solid waste district, all the different taxing districts in the area that make up local government. The thing about Monroe County is that we're one of the few counties where there's one dominant city. And because of that, people can't tell city and county apart. They don't know who provides what service, and that requires a lot of explaining. So the good news is I get to expand to not just talk about city of Bloomington, but anything city or county related.
Yeah, definitely a silver lining coming out of it.
Yeah.
Other than myself, who was your favorite guest? I'm just kidding.
No, Jordan was top 3. Let me. If you have to scroll down. Okay,
No.
well, I have to say the one that's the interview that stands out for me was Emily Pike.
Okay.
So Emily Pike is the director of New Hope for Families.
Oh wow. Okay.
So they're the only family the only homeless shelter for families.
Yeah.
With children. In fact, it's really a homeless shelter for children, and adults who are their guardians or caretakers are allowed in only with children. And one of the things I learned from her in that interview was that the age group most likely to be homeless is between the ages of 0 and 1. That many people fall into homelessness because they have a baby, and the cost of having a baby they were living marginally, and that puts them over the edge.
Wow.
The second most common, if I recall it correctly, are children under the age of 6. So the idea that children are the most likely to be homeless, just mind-blowing, And every episode, I learn at least one fascinating or mind-blowing thing from my guests, and it's really an honor to be able to just give them a platform to explain what people do, but just sort of that episode alone, like if your mind isn't blown by a fact like that or something else, I'll be surprised, because she has a lot of interesting things to say. I mean, I have Isaac Asare almost commandeered the show.
Oh,
and frankly, he's going to be back on the show to interview me.
There you go.
He wants to interview me.
So I think I started to say it earlier. The one interaction I've ever had with Isaac, other than when I spoke at City Council about convention center expansion a few weeks ago, was it was at a Carrie Thompson ice cream social. She had ice cream come out, Switchyard Park. Go up, and I'm just meeting a bunch of people. I'm like, introduce or someone mutual we were chatting with, and Isaac was there. I was like, hey, I'm Jordan. He's like, Isaac. And I'm like, great. He's like, oh, I just got just ran or whatever. And I'm like, oh, great. Like, oh, did you win? He goes, I got the most votes out of anybody. I'm like, I thought it was just such a funny night. He was so insulted by me asking if he won that he was just like, I got more votes than anyone.
Yeah. I did not get as many votes as him.
I thought it was hilarious, though. That was just his.
He is a tall, frothy, effervescent drink of water and of sparkling water.
Oh, okay.
And he lights up the room. So I am delighted to have him come and take over the show, and he wants to turn the tables on me and ask me questions on. And I'm ready.
Yeah, that'll be great. A new council member.
Ask away, my friend.
Isak away. Sorry. All right, Steve. Thank you so much. It's been a lot of fun.
I'm delighted to be here. We got plenty to talk about next time.
Yeah, we'll run it back. We'll see you for the next 2 hours.
Well, we'll see how much people tolerate. And then you can pace it. It doesn't have to be right away. But
okay,
we're probably gonna have to talk about parking.
Yeah, parking. Yeah, let's just do a total no dishes episode, and it's just.
But you got to limit it to 1 hour. Max.
No, let's just do me learning about city government.
All right,
we'll call it no parking.
That's a deal.
No parking.
No parking.
And no turn on red.
Oh my God, I see a new podcast just about parking.
Yeah, and it's you educating me on things.
Yeah, that would be phenomenal.
And then me pushing back on things that I feel
the
passionate
official
about.
podcast of the Bloomington Parking Commission. I can see it.
We'll do it in a car parked in a parking meter spot downtown.
Yeah, instead of comedians in cars getting coffee, it's
comedians in cars talking about parking.
Sitting in a parking meter, paying, trying to use the Park Mobile app.
That's right.
All right. Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it, buddy.
Thanks, Jordan.
Yeah. What another great episode. Thanks so much for tuning in. Also, thanks to our Season 6 presenting sponsor, Visit Bloomington. Check them out at visitbloomington.com. We'll see you soon. In the meantime, keep those hands dry. This episode of the No Dishes Podcast was recorded, edited, and produced by Garrett Portinga of Green Hat Media in beautiful downtown Bloomington, Indiana.
No dishes.
No Dishes Media.
No Dishes Media.